Welcome to the Chirosation, where chiropractors share their stories and lessons learnt in practice. The intention of the Chirosation is to provide resources and a community that will help chiropractors realise their innate potential. So join the Chirosation today. In this episode, I have a conversation with Dr. Tim Lee from Full Potential Chiropractic in Singapore. It was great to catch up with Tim and hear about his experiences over the past year. We discuss what practice life has been like and the lessons he has learnt, what it took to start practicing Singapore, and the benefits of working in a large practice. Tim had great insights into common struggles that we face as early graduates. So enjoy this Chirosation. Welcome to the Chirosation, Dr. Tim Lee. This is super exciting. I've been really looking forward to this one to kind of dive in and hear about what your experiences have been like over the last year. So welcome.
Great, thanks Ben. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. So first things first, just to kind of get you warmed up and settled in, what was your journey into chiropractic? How did it all start for you?
How did it all start? Good question. So actually, I stumbled across it. Mick Dad, he was on the show earlier. He actually introduced me to chiropractic actually, and yeah, from there it was I believe my first year into health sciences in University of Auckland, and yeah, he told me all about it, and I never knew there was a chiropractic college in New Zealand or in Auckland for that matter. It happened to be quite close to where I used to live, but the sad thing is I moved like 30 kilometers away, which kind of sucked. But yeah, definitely after I heard about that, I went straight to the college. The staff there, they told me all about it, and yeah, something just struck a chord in me.
Nice. Do you remember what that was? What did you really resonate with?
Definitely the philosophy.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
That's good. Anything particularly about it?
I remember, like the recruitment stuff you told me about it. She showed me the center and just explained in such a simple manner that I bet Dr. Phil will be, very happy to hear, and especially about how the body heals itself. And I was like, yeah, I'm on.
That's cool, because it was kind of the same with me. Like when I first found out about chiropractic, I really had no idea. I'd never been to see a chiropractor before. I didn't really know anything about it. But as soon as I started looking into it and kind of heard about what its philosophy was, what chiropractors actually did, it just made complete sense to me.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. Luckily, blessed in the sense they explained it in such a easy to understand way as well, which was great. Yeah,
definitely. And then you actually start chiropractic college and everything changes.
Oh, yes.
It gets so much deeper and you learn so much more. And it's definitely a journey. So obviously gone through college, you're finishing up, you're about to actually, hit practice life. What made you decide to move to Singapore and practice?
Good question. Well, actually, the main thing at this point, the thing about if you're starting an associate anywhere in New Zealand, it's going to take some time to get things running, right? So the thing about Singapore was that I heard, the place that I'm currently at, which is Full Potential Chiropractic, it's different in the sense that there's already a practice base there. So meaning that it's a lot easier for me to, take breaks, and also the way the practice is designed. So my main kind of focus for my first year out was really to hopefully travel as much as I can. Nice.
And then also at the same time probably get wicked hot at adjusting as well, because you're seeing a lot of people, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. It has, in terms of how it works over there, they did do a lot of training with me. So yeah, in terms of the adjusting, later on down the track, when I did start seeing all the floodgate of people, it definitely did improve my adjusting way more.
Absolutely. So here, because there is a bit of a training process, right? So you obviously finished here in New Zealand. When did you actually move over to Singapore?
Yep. So I moved over to Singapore at the end of February, 27th, I believe. Yeah.
Nice. So end of Feb 2016, and then how long was training before you actually started in practice?
So for me, how it really began at first, it was kind of like a 3 to 4 month trial period. And then the great thing was, because I already had a big holiday in Japan sorted, and I'm like, I definitely cannot give this up. But they were really, they're quite flexible with things. They're very understanding. So they, put that into the contract so I could go take my holiday, and
Nice.
kind of at the same time I was just like, okay, kind of treat this like a very big learning experience, at the same time experience a different country. And the training at the beginning, it was really more focused on like learning their procedures, and definitely a lot of screening at first, which was actually a good thing in my experience.
That's good, man. And so training, was that like on the job? Were you actually in an office, or was it kind of like on a location, or what was the deal?
Yep. So yeah, it was in the office half the time. Then the other half, like on the job. Then I might go to like the screening, especially in my first few months. I was there like pretty often. Then maybe like 1 or 2 days out of the week, I'll go to the office and they'll check in on how I'm doing and everything.
That's cool. And how much of that is like communication philosophy type talking things to patients, and how much of that is actual skills acquisition? This is how you adjust, this is how you set up someone, this is how you take x-rays, that kind of stuff?
Definitely in the first 3 to 4 months, it was mainly focused on communication.
Cool.
It's very important in the sense that, especially in Singapore, the health paradigm here is without doubt pain-based, especially with like the Asian base. Every day they always come along and be like, oh, very pain here. I'm like, wait, what does that mean? And yeah, just they always look for a solution after the problem has happened. And that's kind of
right.
I'm lucky that I've picked up that sense of where the health paradigm is for the population is, so I can change my communication accordingly as well.
Yeah, and I think that is really important actually, to match people where they're at. Because if you suddenly come at them with like what I would describe as kind of pure chiropractic philosophy, that the pain is just an expression of the body not functioning very well, and we obviously need to get through that first to really get to the proper stuff, which is, well, the body's out of balance and we've got to get everything reconnected and talking to each other again. But you can't really come at people with that straight away, because they're in pain and they're not feeling comfortable, and they're coming to you to say, help me.
Without doubt, like I wish we could just straight up just be like third paradigm, where it's just purely like that. But sadly, that's just the current environment here doesn't support that, and we have to be a little bit more second paradigm. But it's so once they're started, it's so important that they understand the chiropractic philosophy and the body heal itself, and adjustments are pretty critical to getting to that point as well.
Absolutely. So then what's your kind of new patient into report of findings kind of process? What's your patient education process like?
Yeah, so the screening, that's kind of like a little snippet of what's going on. So they kind of build a little curiosity there, and very hopeful that we can help them. And then at the initial consultation, we go over, explore everything, like a pretty general consultation tape. And then we do explain to them what chiropractic's about, how the body works, what subluxation is, which is pretty important because there's a lot of places that don't ever mention subluxation here, which I feel quite very grateful to, in the sense that I'm in a very subluxation-based practice.
Nice.
And then throughout the report, we have a very big report where we spend maybe like 20 minutes explaining that all in much more detail as well, cover a lot of key points throughout, and also go over maybe some examples of x-rays as well, depending on if they had x-rays or not.
Yeah. So
they understand the significance or the importance of what's going on.
That's cool, man. And what kind of recommendations are you generally making? Like for me, I'd say the most common recommendation I'll have with people is if they want relief, like they just want to feel better, then generally it's 12 visits over 4 weeks. Whereas if they want things to be corrected, then I tend to give people like a 6 month to 18 month program, starting out with like 3 visits a week for 8 weeks type thing. What are the kind of recommendations that you commonly make?
Good point. So definitely it really is based on their goals. That's actually one of the very first things that we say during our report.
Nice.
Definitely for us, if they are wanting to, like you say, for relief, feel better, improve their health and their function, just generally, it'll be about between 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 months at the beginning. And in terms of, that really depends on where they're at, what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Maybe usually maybe 3 or 2 times a week. It really does depend, and it's also X-rays play a pretty big part in our office here.
Yeah, but definitely the same for me. I think the only people that I don't X-ray are kids. Pretty much all of my other patients have had an X-ray, but obviously there's been a reason for it as well. They're coming in with some kind of pain or discomfort or postural issue that's been going on for yonks, and they've got a bunch of different weaknesses in their body. So I actually want to see what's going on underneath the surface. So is it pretty common for you guys to X-ray?
Yeah, without a doubt. Almost 90%, if not like 99%.
Yeah.
They all get X-rayed pretty much.
That sounds like me too. That's good.
Yeah, it's so critical, especially it's also kind of so they understand, like, wow, okay, so this is what's going on. This is what my spine looks like. It's also a teaching tool, but also so they understand, this is, what's going on in your spine. This is what's going to your nerve. This is what's causing your problems. So important that they also understand as well, which is really important.
I think it's such a big piece of the puzzle, because for me, the X-ray, they tell me the history of the person's body, like what have they been through. So that gives me a much better understanding of the time frame. Because if it's been there for 2 to 10 years, am I going to be able to correct this in 8 to 12 visits? Probably not. So for me then to have integrity, I have to make a recommendation to them to say, look, if we want to get this better, if we want to correct this damage that's been in your body for a really long time, it's going to take a while.
Without a doubt.
So does that become part of your talk as well?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when we do find, pretty long-term damage, mid to long-term damage, we always, let them understand definitely the goals of this, early intensive part is that you're going to feel better, function better. Nice. Essentially, it's kind of like surface healing. So, they have to understand that only 10% of these nerves, feel pain, meaning that, 90% of the time, if there is no pain, you're not going to feel it at all. So it's so critical that even after you improve that, you need to continue if you want to make sure you keep fully optimally correcting this. So nice. Usually most people understand that, and at the end of the first intensive phase, then they're usually more than happy to continue on, and especially after they see those improvements as well, which is very key.
Well, I think that's so key that you're actually painting the big picture for them straight away, rather than kind of saying a small agreement. Let's trial a period of care to see if it works. You go, no, this is probably what it's going to take. Let's start and see how good we can get you.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of re-evaluations along the way to check in how well they're doing and to make sure that they're happy. If not, we can fine tune how their care is going as well, which is great. And it is making sure that we're working together as a team as well. So especially after their first intensive, they can decide as well actually where they want to go from there based on their goals. So it's so important that even if they don't get results, that they actually understand where their health is and how much they can or cannot improve based on what they want to do. If they want to, keep improving, then great, we're here to help them. If they want to maintain the improvements, not the best, decision, but it's their choice, and we're here to still help them get through that as well.
That's so interesting, because that's pretty much sounds like exactly what I'm doing as well. Really interesting. So what's the kind of techniques that you tend to practice the most?
Techniques. Okay, so you have an idea of why we're doing this. We do see a lot of people, so meaning that we have to be pretty quick, maybe 1 or 2 minutes tops. Even 2 minutes is a bit too long for me. And what that means is that we have to take care of the doctors, each and every of the doctors here, which is the most important thing. Taking care of the practice members, second most important. Very important still at the same time. So what we do, we definitely use a lot of drops for pelvis. And I believe you do that as well, correct? Yeah.
So for me, it kind of depends. Like I would say I definitely practice kind of gonified, like definitely a lot of diversified with a little bit of Gonstead kind of thrown in there, predominantly manual technique. But if I'm having difficulty with a patient, then I use a drop to assist. So like I'll be doing side posture, have a couple of goes at it. If it's not clearing nicely, pop up the drop table, drop into it, and then recheck it. And usually by then it's cleared because I've getting in a pretty good go.
Nice.
And then it's the same for everything else as well. Like thoracics is pretty similar. And then cervicals is the same as well. Or I'll use the activator in the cervicals as kind of like a force application, even though I'll do some activator tests as well sometimes.
Definitely.
So I'd say I do like a real big mashup of what we were taught at college.
Yeah, I mean, definitely chiropractic is chiropractic, just whatever works really for you and for
just the spine, get the nerve
most
system working better, bro.
Exactly. So definitely ours is a little bit of a mashup as well. It's something that the doctors here have developed over time in terms of what's the best in terms of efficiency, making sure the doctor isn't being stressed from adjusting like hundreds and hundreds a week. And definitely. So that's how we usually start off with the pelvis. We do look at the x-rays as well and use our findings, which is great. For lumbars, if there is any, then we usually activate for me as a force application. If not, then just leave it alone. Maybe side posture is usually later on down in the track. That's when we usually start to use it. Maybe if they're into like reconstructive or wellness care. For the mid back, we just do whatever really that works for them. P to A or anterior. Usually do P to A, but when they need an anterior for sure. And then for cervical, usually we do supine or for most diversified. But lately I've been doing more prone diversified. It's different to what we've learned, and it's just so much easier on my wrist, which is another problem that's actually recently started in the last couple of months due to all this adjusting actually.
Yeah. So you're starting to get a bit of damage already?
Yeah, look, just a little bit on the left side I noticed. I don't know if it's because of all the P to A's or potentially the anteriors, but definitely each motion is something you need to watch out for, and just make sure you have a strong wrist and maintain your form as well. So critical.
Yeah, you kind of need it. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying before, saying you have to look after the docs, because if you don't, well, one, you don't have a business, but two, you can't actually look after people. If your body's damaged, if you're not working very well, how can you look after people?
Exactly. So you're gonna do the world a whole lot better if you do look after yourself for sure.
Definitely. So what are you doing to take care of that wrist?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, doing more prones, which is great because that actually you don't need to flip them over, so that actually saves time.
Nice.
And I feel you get it definitely. It's more effective actually, in fact, than supine, which is great. Also, just try to avoid anteriors as well. Those are the two main things I've been doing to look after my wrist for sure.
Definitely. And so, I mean, what I've heard from just other people, obviously no one in Singapore, so I'm super happy to get you on, is a lot of it's kind of CDP stuff. Is that what you do?
So I have heard about this. So is that, I think the American colleges, they use this much more, yeah?
Yeah, it's real common in America. Dr. Kent Blackmore, my primary, has done a lot of courses, and he does a lot of CBP stuff, but he's definitely kind of augmented it and kind of developed his own style inside of that. But it's a lot of postural stuff. Definitely take x-rays, you set them up on tables and you drop, like it's more kind of global adjusting to adjust the posture. And is that kind of what you're doing or not?
There definitely with the principal chiropractor, he is also from America as well, so definitely that is based some of that on this. For example, the pelvis. Sometimes we drop the cervicals based on the posture or on the x-rays as well. And they have told me about that, like snippets of it, but not the full extent for sure.
Cool. Okay. So it's kind of there as a bit of like a cultural background kind of stuff in terms of like how do we do things in this office, but it's not something that you're kind of forced to do or encouraged to do.
No, not at all. Definitely I find that it, based on what they've taught me, and I just use it accordingly, it is helpful without doubt from what we've seen.
My x-ray analysis is very different to what we've done at school, because I now use a lot of the CBP stuff, because I find it's more relevant to the patient. So for me, the whole point of rolling up x-rays is to give me a story that I can then reflect back to the patient about what their body's been through. So
so
that's why
it looks quite looks like our processes are pretty similar. So it's definitely different to college where it's pretty complex and we're looking at very segmental and they don't really understand it as much. Like, what do these lines mean? But with the lines that are drawn up, it's very, very easy to understand for the practice member. And like you said, there's like a story. We know what kind of stresses and traumas have built up, how long this has been based on that as well.
Nice, man. And what would you say, like if someone was thinking about going to Singapore and practicing, what would you say to them in terms of things they need to consider?
Okay, definitely there's quite a lot of things to consider, but not too much. So the first thing I would say is definitely the first thing I'd say that's good is that if you're an English speaker, this is great. This is a place for you because English is the first language here for everyone. So
nice.
That's a big plus for everyone.
Yeah, that was definitely something I wanted to ask about because obviously there's going to be a language barrier if you're moving to a different country, but Singapore, it's fine?
Yeah, usually in most cases it's totally fine. The middle-aged, 30, 40, 50-year-old, that generation, they're usually totally fluent. It's just cool. The last generation at the moment, in the 60s, 70s, there's some people, not to be rude, but like uneducated because of just the way the system was back then. So they only know their mother tongue, usually Chinese, Mandarin, or Malay potentially, and meaning that we do have systems set up for our CAs so they can also translate if needed.
Cool. Okay. Nice. And what else do you think people should be thinking about if they're thinking that Singapore might be a good idea for me? I like the sound of what Tim's talking about. It sounds really interesting. What kind of other things should they be thinking about?
The good parts, definitely. So I would say in terms of if you want to travel as well, at the same time it's great in the sense that everything is so nearby. I could just take a ferry right next to my work. I could go to Indonesia for like a day, or I could just cross the bridge on the other side of the island, go to Malaysia, or 1 or 2 hour flights to a lot of different places here nearby. So if you want to travel, this is definitely the place to be as well.
That's cool, man. And just actually on that, we were talking about this before we started recording as well. In terms of travel, because obviously that's something that's quite important for you. Actually being in a practice the way that yours is designed, there's other docs there who can come in and cover for you quite easily, right?
Yep, definitely. Definitely, without a doubt. So at our practice, it is designed in a very efficient and special way. Definitely, tops off to my principal chiropractor, Dr. Zach. It's set up in the sense that each doctor is like there's a standard throughout all the centers, meaning that one doctor can cover or replace another doctor if needed as well. So, everything's standardized essentially. Of course, there's certain things that we do personalize a little, but it's to the point that it's negligible and it's as easy as just, okay, I want to take the day off in a couple of weeks, and they can make that happen.
Nice, which I think is really important. For me personally, I think that's a real big problem that I see in a lot of chiropractic offices. Is it's very much you just have one chiro there or a couple of chiros there, and if you want to take a break, that's a big deal. Like the patients aren't really sure about it because a new person has to come in that they've never seen or heard of before, or you have to get a locum, or the associate's got to cover for the primary, and that's create some different issues obviously, but it sounds like, well, at least for me, it sounds like that's a really nice setup where you have that cover, because it's important to be able to take a break. You got to look after yourself.
It is, definitely, and without doubt, if you don't, then you're gonna get burned out for sure. So
hell yeah, especially if you're as busy as you are, you got to get burned out.
Yeah, I'm glad that I definitely haven't had a burnout yet, but I've been making sure I do take breaks here and there as well.
Nice, that's awesome, man. How difficult was it for you to actually move to Singapore? Like getting a visa, getting all the kind of work set up, and how did you hear about your practice in the first place?
Okay, so in terms of how I heard about my practice, it was actually through a family friend. They knew one of the chiropractors here, which is Dr. Steve. Yeah, he's a great guy, and through that, just sent my CV, resume, and they're actually very efficient and fast and got back to me and went through the interview process, and boom, yeah, I just really like what they had on store, and yeah.
Oh, so it sounds pretty straightforward. And then getting a visa for you, how difficult was that?
Okay. So the visa is actually not too bad because they have their staff there, part of the management team, that sorted it all out. But the thing is, it was annoying because like Singapore, they're high standards in everything they do and have, which is great. But a bit of a pain for me in this, because they were asking for credentials which wasn't linked to my chiropractic degree whatsoever. And they were asking for like University of Auckland. I did like a summer paper in AUT one time. They're asking for that as well, for like the last 2 universities I went to. So yeah, I had to go around fetching stuff that wasn't really important.
Right, it's just getting through the bureaucracy type stuff.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's just the way that it's currently designed at the moment. They're making sure they're thorough as possible, and it's from a place with high credentials as well, which is pretty key, because apparently certain colleges, they don't accept in Singapore as well if they know that it's not to the standards or credible as well.
Well, I mean, that actually sounds like a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then, so what's the kind of culture around chiropractic? Because I know Singapore's a little bit different, because they've obviously got what I would call kind of normal medicine, I guess, but kind of Western medicine. But then you have Chinese medicine as well, and then chiropractic coming into that. What's the kind of culture around healthcare? I know it's very pain based, but what's the kind of culture around chiropractic and health, and what's your experience of that been?
Okay, so definitely, Western medicine, that is, normal medicine, you could say, allopathic, that's definitely prevalent here. Chinese medicine, or TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, that's what they shorten down to. It is very prevalent as well, like probably everyone would have seen it, so that kind of is good in the sense they are open to alternative care as well. So, but that does come with its own challenges, because within TCM there's a lot of different types, and they kind of assume that it's similar to chiropractic, so we really need to make sure they understand it's different. And that's definitely one of the challenges that always comes up when everyone asks, is chiropractic and TCM Chinese medicine the same? And just got to explain it each time.
Because under my understanding, there's some crossover, but the way that it's actually practiced, I think TCM's a lot closer to Western medicine, because it's generally about you have a symptom and here's X treatment for that symptom, right?
Yeah, you could definitely say that in certain parts of that. They are symptom based. More so, I would say also like soft tissue kind of based in some of the other parts that they do.
My understanding, like they are very holistic. Like they look at the body as a whole, and they understand that vitalism and everything kind of works, and the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. But it seems like it's practiced in quite a very allopathic way, which is obviously very different from chiropractic.
Yeah, it is definitely holistic, but also very symptom-based from what I've heard as well. But there's obviously going to be ups and downs for each and every kind of healthcare, you could say. So, but it's
so then how do you describe the difference between chiropractic and that?
How would I describe that? Yeah, so usually most people when they do
go
to
your patients.
Yeah, when they go see a Chinese medicine, usually what they have done is maybe some cupping, the pressure cups, if you've seen it. There was like a bit of a fad in the last Olympics, and then acupuncture with the needles, or there's something called tweener, and essentially what that is from my understanding, from hearing from a lot of other people and the other doctors, is they essentially try to crack the spine by doing very broad stretches, and that kind of becomes difficult because some people, they become so adamant that it's the same as well, so that can have its own challenges. But we just mainly explain, in most cases it's to do more so with the soft tissue, the muscles or ligaments, and helping with that area of the health of your body.
Right. So then how do you specifically say, so if one of your patients walks in and goes, oh yeah, chiropractic's very similar to tweening, what would you say?
Yeah, tweener, yeah.
Oh, sorry, tweener. What
Yeah.
what would you say is, like, would you just say, like, how would you describe chiropractic as different?
Chiropractic, yep. So definitely, so how I would describe the difference between that is tweener. So sounds like the main goal for them is to get the spine moving, really get it more flexible, get some motion in there. But again, if it's a physical misalignment of the spine, a subluxation, it's gonna require a physical realignment to correct it. Correct. So that's usually what I would say, and most people understand that.
Okay, so that's good. So it's more just bringing it back to the outcome measure rather than the actual process of what I'm physically doing. What I'm doing is I'm correcting a subluxation compared to stretching ligaments and muscles and whatever.
Absolutely. You pretty much said it exactly there. Yeah. So compared to stretching, getting the spine moving overall better, we're here to actually correct physical misalignments of the spine or subluxations, to make sure your whole entire spine, your nervous system is functioning and healing at its best.
And then share as much as or as little as you like about the next topic, but I'm just quite curious about it because obviously the way that your practice is set up and run, there's a lot of things that I really like about it, but it is set up like a business, like you were kind of talking about before. Other chiropractors can come in and out, everything's kind of set and organized, and that seems to be the culture of the bigger practices in Singapore. What do you think works well with that model? What do you think works not so good with that model? And where do you see the future of that going in Singapore?
Okay, so definitely, I'm not too sure if there's any other practices like this. So it's good in this. It's great because for me, I can go to, and I do already at the moment. So I go to all 3 different branches here, and yeah, that's good in that sense. But I'm not too sure if that is many other places do it like this. In most cases, it's like normal, like one principal chiropractor there, everyone sees them. From what I hear, usually they don't really have people covering in as easily like we do. So in terms of how it's the ups and downs, I would say definitely, we've already talked most about the ups, so I'll talk more about the downs in that case. So, in terms of that, I can't really see much, but definitely from what I've seen at the last few months is that, for example, everyone's different in how they adjust, right? So, for example, one of the doctors here, he's, Dr. Aaron McMaster, Dr. Phil's son, actually, is at our practice.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah, and he's a built guy, just like his dad. So he's very strong in his adjustments, and that means that they compare that to be like the normal. So meaning that even though I'm doing great adjustments, I'm being fast and whatnot, very craftsmanship, if you could say, they kind of understand or have a feeling, preconceived knowledge of that this is what it should be, so I have to match that standard. So I definitely need to change the way I adjust sometimes, depending on which place I am in. I need to kind of replicate them, and that's kind of one little downside, but that's just life.
But honestly, that's life, man. I don't think it matters what any practice you go to. That's going to be the same because every body is just a little bit different, and they're like the way that they express the art of chiropractic is always going to be a little bit different.
Definitely, yeah.
So that's not really a down, man. You can't think of any downs. That's good.
Yeah, I really can't really, to be honest.
So what I'd love to kind of talk about next is what's been some wonderful kind of some wonderful experiences that you've had in practice over the last year, and then some not so good experiences you've had in practice, some lessons learned.
Okay, so definitely when I was first starting off, it was great because I got to go around everywhere for those screenings, which they call road shows here for some strange reason. And that that pretty much let me travel everywhere in Singapore. Cool. And then the people that I would have, signed up to do the initial consult, like months, maybe like like a quarter of a year or half a year later, I'm in the I'll see them and like, wow, okay, you've been under care and you've gotten these great improvements, and you told me about how bad your life currently was, and they were so happy and they were so thankful for me introducing me to that. And I've had quite a few experiences with that lately, actually.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's always great.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
And yeah, what was the other question again?
Yeah, so I mean, that's super exciting, because that's definitely something I noticed as well, is once you've actually been in practice for a while, you get to see people transition and transform and become a better version of themselves, really. So that's awesome that you're experiencing that.
Mm.
The other thing I was curious about is, obviously with ups, we all have some downs. So what was some kind of learning experience, some things that you weren't too happy with in practice, or you feel like you could have done better?
Okay, so definitely some downs are that there's some people, like, you'd be at a report and you're like, I know I can help you, this is what's going on, and it looks like I just didn't do a good enough job during the initial consult for them to, and also leading into the report, that they don't understand the nature of the problem and the significance of it. And sometimes, even though we know we can help them, they just, no, what, this isn't for me, or for some other reasons, like, common ones are financial, or they need to talk about it with someone, or whatever reason that might be, and essentially they don't start care. But there's sometimes just those situations where they still want to really start, but there's some obstacle in the way, and for example, maybe a family member or something, and that just really, I find that that's such a it's just a heartbreaking thing where they want to start care, but there's just this big obstacle in the way that prevents them from that. And we do try to support them as much as they can, but sadly, some cases it just happens.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of stuff happens with me as well. And for me, I've just developed a way of looking at it where it's just not the right time for them to start. But the fact that they've come in, they've had an examination, they've had a taste of chiropractic, and they know it's good for them, just now is not the right time. Well, I mean, for me, that's a win. Because who knows, a year, 2 year, 5 years down the track, it might be the right time, and that's when they can start.
Absolutely. Definitely. There's a quote, I'm pretty sure it's by BJ Palmer, where it goes about, you don't know how far reaching our actions will be. So I think that's definitely true of those people that we don't start on that day. We may be able to set that fire for them to start later on and improve through chiropractic, or just improve their health in life. Definitely.
Well, something that I've kind of noticed that myself especially kind of struggled with over the last year, and now still, but it's definitely getting a lot better now that I've getting more referrals and I've been in practice for a bit longer, is generating new patients. So what's the, obviously you go on road shows all the time, which I think is a great name. I might steal it, that's quite fun. But you go on road shows, you're getting out into the community and talking with people. What other ways do you have to generate new patients, and what's the culture of marketing in your practice?
So definitely those road shows, they do play a big part, but we don't fully just only rely on those. Obviously, we do have internal referrals, which are very, very important, and then we have a website as well, which seems to actually get quite a few people in. And we do actually have a dedicated marketing team for all this kind of stuff. So that's quite different to most places. Like we all have to do our own marketing. So that's one thing that's good, but in my experience here, that's one thing that's actually missing in my set of skills. So definitely everything in the office, I'm a lot more confident now. Maybe I don't have it all down, but I'm still learning. But if I do decide to, go out on my own, that's one thing that I'm gonna have to start from scratch, which I'm a bit worried.
Yeah, man, because that is hard. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, is actually getting people in the door, right? You can be an amazing chiropractor. You've got the best conversation and patient interaction and just a wicked hot adjuster, but if people don't come in, you don't have practice.
Exactly. So definitely once they're in the door, I think I can help with that experience, and but definitely getting actually setting things up, like finding places that are ideal, finding the right audience. Definitely, like in Auckland, I could do that. Also in Singapore, obviously, that's one thing that I was a bit worried as well going overseas. If I have to find my own, practice members, how am I going to achieve that? So that was actually also another, a big plus about coming here, because there is that support all that, and one less worry about being in a foreign country and you don't know anything about anything.
Oh, definitely. And also just starting out as a chiropractor, like your first year out is hard. And if you don't have to stress about how am I going to get new patients and sitting around not doing anything for hours on end, that sucks. And that's certainly my experience and chatting with other chiros in their first years, that they've definitely experienced that as well. And if that can be something that you miss out on, if you don't necessarily have to have that I'm going to use the word suffering, because it certainly was for me, because it sucked. If I get to miss out on that and really focus on the bit that I love, which is interacting with people and helping people be happy and healthy again, man, that's so much better. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, that you do need to understand the chiropractic experience in terms of business from all angles. But I think you just get that from doing it for a few years, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's just, like you said, it's going to be through experience. It's just going to be a part of the journey as a chiropractor, really.
Yeah, man. So speaking of the journey, what does the future hold for Dr. Tim Lee?
Yep, so I should be here for at least another year and a half. So that's my current plan.
Nice, man.
Definitely, I am, because, I went back to New Zealand earlier this year in January, and we were actually meant to catch up, but sadly we missed each other.
That's right. Just by a day next time.
Yeah, so sad. But yeah, so before going back, I was like, Singapore's great. I'm totally fine being here. But after going back, seeing family and friends, I'm like, homesick of it now.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, it definitely is a bit sad in that sense. I definitely can't and will see myself going back home sometime in the future.
Nice.
That's probably where I'll ultimately end up, I think.
Sure.
For most of my life, I think.
Sure. But I guess that's the thing. It's being around friends and family is really important. All right, let's bring this to a close. If anyone's really interested in getting in touch with you, Tim, what's the best way to reach out and get some advice or have a conversation if they're curious about things in Singapore?
Yeah, definitely. You can reach me on Facebook. I don't have a doctor's page, but definitely you can just send a invite or whatnot, and then I'll be sure to accept. Especially, I'd be more than happy to have a chat. There's already been quite a few other third or fourth years that's already got in touch. So definitely more than welcome to have a chat about Singapore and what it's like as well.
That's awesome. Hey Tim, thank you so much for coming on the Chirosation today. It's been such a pleasure. I'll have to get you on again soon.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you for all the support you've been showing this platform. If you have any ideas for future episodes or you'd like to be involved, send me a message through the website or your preferred social media. For the resources mentioned in this episode, check out the show notes or thechirosation.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and leave a comment on Facebook. Now go out there and start a Chirosation today.